Have you ever considered that the greatest leaders in history were once the most broken, unqualified, and unlikely? What if your biggest weakness is actually the birthplace of your calling? What if the moments you felt hidden, forgotten, or powerless were exactly when God was preparing you for something greater? Our story begins in the heart of ancient Egypt, a land of pyramids and pharaohs who claimed to be gods. While the Nile River flowed endlessly, bringing life and sustenance, it was a time of oppression and suffering for the Hebrew people. Their cries rose to heaven, yet their chains remained unbroken. A nation wept as its children were torn from their mother's arms. The sound of grief echoed through the slave camps and the mud pits where they toiled under the crack of a whip. Yet, in the midst of this pain and in the shadow of death, a new story was beginning. With trembling hands, a mother hid her newborn son in a small house of clay and straw, rocking him in silence and praying that no soldier would hear his cry. Day after day, she clung to hope and faith, but the time came when she could no longer conceal him. With a mix of courage and desperation, she wove a basket of reeds, sealed it with tar, and placed her baby inside. The Nile carried him away. This is where our story begins, not with a great leader or a mighty warrior, but with a fragile child floating helplessly on the waters of death, a child marked for destruction, yet destined for deliverance. This is more than just the story of Moses. It's a testament to how God can take the hidden, the broken, and the ordinary and raise them up to change the world. The story begins in Egypt, the crown of the ancient world. Its temples rise toward the blazing sun, its statues carved into stone to honor kings who called themselves gods. The Nile flows endlessly, carrying life through the desert sands. It is a land of power, of armies, of glory. And yet, beneath the golden image of Egypt, a darker reality cries out. The Hebrews, once welcomed into the land during the days of Joseph, now live as slaves. Their bodies are bent under cruel labor. Their hands form bricks for monuments that will never bear their names. Their cries echo in the night, but their chains remain. And Pharaoh, fearful of their growing numbers, chooses cruelty as his answer. He issues a decree, cold, merciless, final. Every Hebrew boy that is born must be thrown into the Nile. The river that once symbolized life now becomes a grave. Mothers cling to their infants, their tears mingling with the dust of oppression. Fathers lower their heads in despair, powerless against the might of Egypt. A generation is marked for death. But in one small house on the edge of Goshen, a different sound can be heard. The faint cry of a newborn. His mother, Jochebed, holds him close, her heart pounding with both love and fear. She knows the decree. She knows discovery means death. And yet, she refuses to surrender her child. Day after day, night after night, she hides him. Every time he stirs, she hushes him with trembling hands. Every sound outside makes her body tense. For 3 months, the child is hidden in secret. But babies do not stay hidden for long. His cries grow louder, his presence harder to conceal. Jochebed knows the time is coming when she will no longer be able to protect him. And so, with hands that shake from both fear and faith, she weaves a basket from papyrus reeds, sealing it carefully with tar so it will float. She lays her son inside, swaddled in cloth, her tears falling onto the woven lid. This is her last act of love, her final act of faith. She carries the basket to the river's edge. The same river that has claimed the lives of countless Hebrew children now receives her son. With a trembling heart, she lowers the basket into the waters of the Nile. She lets go. The river takes him. The basket drifts among the reeds, rocking with the current. The Nile, vast and unpredictable, could swallow him at any moment. But unseen hands guide it. Watching from a distance, hidden among the tall grasses, is the baby's sister, Miriam. She follows the basket with wide eyes, her heart pounding, her lips whispering prayers she barely understands. And then, the basket slows. It comes to rest near the very place where Pharaoh's daughter has come to bathe. She sees it, curious at this strange little ark nestled in the reeds. She sends a servant to bring it closer. The lid is lifted. A baby stirs, his eyes open. He cries. The princess pauses. She knows immediately this is one of the Hebrew children. She knows what the decree demands, and yet something moves in her heart. Compassion breaks through the cruelty of law. She cannot cast him away. Instead, she gathers the child into her arms. At that moment, Miriam steps forward from the shadows. Bold, brave, clever beyond her years, she speaks. "Shall I go and call a Hebrew woman to nurse the child for you?" The princess agrees. And so, in a twist of providence, the child is returned to the arms of his own mother. Jochebed, who had placed her son in the river to save him, now receives him back, not in secret, but under the protection of Egypt itself. For a time, she nurses him, holds him, teaches him the songs of his people. And when he is older, he is brought again to Pharaoh's palace. There he is given a name, Moses, meaning drawn out of the water. From the mud of slavery to the marble halls of royalty, Moses' story begins in contrasts. Born under a death sentence, yet raised in a palace. A Hebrew child, yet named by Egypt's princess. A life that should have ended in the waters of the Nile, yet destined to stand before kings. This is the beginning. A child hidden, a child rescued, a child set apart. The boy who had been drawn out of the water grows within walls of stone and gold. Pharaoh's palace becomes his school, Egypt his teacher. He learns to read the sacred writings carved into temple walls, to speak the polished language of rulers and diplomats. He is taught the secrets of astronomy, the strategies of war, the customs of foreign nations. His body is trained for strength, his mind sharpened for wisdom. To Egypt, he appears to be one of their own, a prince with all the makings of a ruler. And yet, within him, another voice speaks. He is not blind to the world beyond the palace gates. From the windows of luxury, he sees the endless labor of his people. He notices the lines carved deep into their faces, the brokenness in their eyes. Whispers reach him, stories of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, names Egypt does not honor but which live in the hearts of slaves. Moses grows up as a man divided, Egyptian by privilege, Hebrew by blood. He belongs to both worlds, yet fits fully in neither. And this tension begins to shape him. Though history rushes to tell of seas that part and mountains that shake, years pass in Moses' life that scripture covers in silence. The child saved from the Nile does not become a deliverer overnight. Decades unfold in obscurity. We are not told every detail of his youth, nor the thoughts that pressed on his heart. But perhaps that silence is itself a lesson. Great destinies are not built in moments of applause, but in long seasons of hiddenness. Before his name would echo across nations, Moses had to learn to live unknown, unseen, unnoticed. In these silent years, something deep is formed. He learns patience, though he does not yet know why. He learns restraint, though it battles against his passions. He learns what it means to wait, even when everything inside of him longs to act. Still, restlessness stirs. Moses cannot turn away from the cries of his people. One day, moved by anger and compassion, he steps beyond the safety of the palace and walks among the Hebrews. There he sees an Egyptian overseer beating a slave, one of his own kin. Rage rises. Without thought of consequence, Moses strikes. The Egyptian falls lifeless in the sand. Moses looks around. He hides the body, burying it quickly. But secrets do not stay buried long. The next day, he intervenes again, this time between two Hebrews fighting each other. Instead of gratitude, he is met with a cutting question. Who made you a ruler and judge over us? Are you going to kill me as you killed the Egyptian? The words pierce him. Fear floods in. What he thought was hidden is already known, and word of his deed reaches Pharaoh. The palace that once sheltered him now becomes a place of danger. Pharaoh seeks his life. Moses runs. The desert stretches before him, vast and merciless. Sand replaces stone. Silence replaces song. The prince of Egypt becomes a fugitive, fleeing into obscurity once more. The man trained in palaces now has nothing. No crown, no army, no family to defend him. Only the endless wilderness and the weight of failure. But it is here, in exile, that Moses begins to truly discover himself. For what is obscurity but the soil where destiny takes root? In Midian, far from Egypt's power, Moses finds shelter among shepherds. He rescues the daughters of a man named Reuel at a well, driving away those who would harass them. This act of courage earns him a home and, in time, a wife, Zipporah. With her, he builds a new life. He tends flocks instead of leading armies, carries a staff instead of wielding a scepter. He names his first son Gershom, saying, "I have become a foreigner in a foreign land." The years roll on, years unmarked by history, but not unnoticed by heaven. While Moses tends sheep in the quiet hills, far from the palaces of Pharaoh, God is watching. The same God who heard the cries of Hebrew mothers in Egypt hears the silence of his servant in Midian. Moses does not yet know it, but obscurity is not abandonment. It is preparation. Every path through the wilderness is teaching him patience. Every long night under the stars is teaching him humility. Every day spent guiding sheep across barren land is preparing him to one day guide a nation through deserts far more dangerous. What feels like delay is actually design. What feels like exile is the place of equipping. The day begins like countless others. Moses rises with the dawn, the sun stretching across the desert hills in shades of red and gold. His staff rests in his hand, familiar and worn, shaped by years of use. Around him, sheep graze on sparse patches of grass, bleating softly as they follow his lead. The wilderness of Sinai is unforgiving, rocky terrain, jagged cliffs, and stretches of emptiness where only the hardiest plants survive. Yet Moses knows it well. Every ridge, every stream bed, every cave has become familiar. For 40 years, this has been his life. A shepherd's life is simple, but not easy. He guides the flock to water, protects them from predators, searches tirelessly for food in a land that offers little. Each day is much like the one before. Each year seems to pass into the next, unmarked by great events. But on this day, something different catches his eye. On the slopes of Horeb, the mountain of God, Moses notices a flicker. At first, it seems like sunlight glinting off a rock. But as he draws closer, he sees it clearly, a bush ablaze with fire. Flames leap upward, bright and fierce, yet the bush itself remains untouched. Its branches do not wither. Its leaves do not curl into ash. The fire burns, but it does not consume. Moses stops. He stares. In the wilderness, fire is no stranger. A spark can turn dry brush into an inferno. But this is different. This is not natural flame. It does not behave as fire should. Curiosity stirs. Slowly, cautiously, Moses steps closer. His sandals press into the sand, his staff tapping against stone as he ascends toward the site. He whispers to himself, "I will go over and see this strange thing, why the bush does not burn up." The closer he comes, the more the flames dance, as though waiting for him. And then, as the desert wind stills, a voice breaks the silence. "Moses, Moses." The sound is unlike any he has heard before. It is not thunder, yet it shakes his bones. It is not human, yet it speaks his name with piercing familiarity. Moses freezes. His heart pounds. He stammers, "Here I am." The voice answers, "Do not come any closer." He dares not look toward the fire. This is no ordinary flame. This is the presence of the Eternal One. The voice continues, steady and solemn. "I have indeed seen the misery of my people in Egypt. I have heard them crying out because of their slave drivers, and I am concerned about their suffering. So I have come down to rescue them and to bring them up out of that land into a good and spacious land, a land flowing with milk and honey." The words strike Moses like lightning. For years he has carried the weight of his people's suffering. For years their cries have haunted him. And now, God himself declares he has heard. God himself promises deliverance. But the voice does not stop there. "So now go. I'm sending you to Pharaoh to bring my people, the Israelites, out of Egypt." The words echo through the wilderness, heavy with command. Moses trembles. "Who am I?" Moses whispers. "That I should go to Pharaoh and bring the Israelites out of Egypt." His voice cracks. The memory of failure surges back. His rash act in Egypt, his flight into exile, the years spent in hiding. He is no deliverer. He is a fugitive, a shepherd. But the voice answers with calm assurance, I will be with you. Still doubt rises. Suppose I go to the Israelites and say, the God of your fathers has sent me to you, and they ask me, what is his name? Then what shall I tell them? The reply comes, timeless and thunderous. I am who I am. Tell them, I am has sent me to you. The desert seems to tremble with the weight of those words. The eternal God declares his name, not bound by time, not limited by kings, not silenced by chains. The bush burns, the voice speaks, and Moses falls silent. Yet fear clings tightly. Moses hesitates, questions, resists. What if they do not believe me? He asks. The voice responds with power. What is that in your hand? Moses looks at the staff he has carried for decades, a shepherd's tool, ordinary, unremarkable. A staff, he answers. Throw it on the ground. He obeys. The staff hits the earth and twists, writhes, becomes a serpent. Moses leaps back in shock. Reach out your hand and take it by the tail. Trembling, he does. And as his fingers close, it becomes once more a staff in his grip. This, says the voice, is so that they may believe that the Lord, the God of their fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob, has appeared to you. Other signs follow. His hand becomes leprous and is restored. The promise of water turned to blood is spoken. Proof upon proof, assurance upon assurance. Still, Moses hesitates. His words falter. Pardon your servant, Lord. I have never been eloquent. I am slow of speech and tongue. The fire flickers, unyielding. Who gave human beings their mouths? Who makes them deaf or mute? Who gives them sight or makes them blind? Is it not I, the Lord? Now go. I will help you speak, and will teach you what to say. But Moses, overwhelmed, pleads, please send someone else. The fire blazes brighter. Anger and mercy intertwine in the voice of God. What about your brother, Aaron the Levite? I know he can speak well. He is already on his way to meet you. I will help both of you speak and will teach you what to do. The dialogue ends. The command stands. The flame continues to burn. A bush that is not consumed. A man who cannot yet comprehend. A God whose presence transforms everything it touches. The wilderness lies behind him. The burning bush still burns in his memory. With his staff in hand and Aaron by his side, Moses makes the long journey, back to the land he once called both home and prison. Each step stirs old memories, of palaces he abandoned, of failure he carried, of a past that chased him into exile. But now, he does not walk alone. At the mountain, God had promised, I will be with you. That promise becomes his strength. When Moses and Aaron arrive, they gather the elders of Israel. Aaron speaks the words God has commanded, and Moses shows them the signs, the staff that becomes a serpent, the hand that turns leprous and is healed. The people bow in awe, their hearts stirred with hope long buried beneath chains. For the first time in generations, whispers rise. Perhaps deliverance is near. The doors of the palace open wide, and Moses steps once again into halls he once knew, as a prince. The grandeur of Egypt surrounds him, golden pillars, carved gods, guards clad in armor. At the center, Pharaoh sits upon his throne, robed in power, crowned in authority. His gaze is cold, his presence commanding. Moses and Aaron stand before him. The air is heavy, the tension sharp. Then Aaron speaks. This is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says. Let my people go so that they may hold a festival to me in the wilderness. The words hang in the air, bold and uncompromising. A command not from man, but from God himself. Pharaoh leans forward, his voice dripping with disdain. Who is the Lord, that I should obey him and let Israel go? I do not know the Lord, and I will not let Israel go. Two voices clash. The voice of arrogance and empire against the voice of the eternal. Pharaoh does not release the people. Instead, he hardens his heart and increases their burden. You are lazy, he declares. That is why you cry out, let us go and sacrifice to the Lord. Now you will make bricks without straw. Yet the quota must remain the same. The cries of the Hebrews grow louder. Their suffering deepens. They turn their anger on Moses. May the Lord look upon you and judge you. You have made us a stench to Pharaoh and his officials, and have put a sword in their hand to kill us. Moses, disheartened, cries out to God, "Why, Lord? Why have you brought trouble on this people? Is this why you sent me? Ever since I went to Pharaoh to speak in your name, he has brought trouble on this people, and you have not rescued your people at all." But God answers with renewed promise. "Now you will see what I will do to Pharaoh. Because of my mighty hand, he will let them go. Because of my mighty hand, he will drive them out of his country." The confrontation intensifies. Pharaoh demands proof of Moses' authority. Aaron casts down the staff before him. It becomes a serpent. The court gasps. But Pharaoh's magicians step forward, performing the same with their own staffs. Yet when Moses' staff swallows theirs, the message is clear. The power of Egypt is no match for the hand of God. Still, Pharaoh's heart grows harder. The first plague comes. The Nile, Egypt's lifeblood, turns to blood. Fish die, the river stinks, yet Pharaoh remains unmoved. Frogs cover the land, filling houses and chambers, even Pharaoh's palace. Magicians mimic the plague, but they cannot remove it. At last, Pharaoh pleads, "Pray to the Lord to take the frogs away from me and my people, and I will let your people go." Moses prays. The frogs die. But when relief comes, Pharaoh hardens his heart again. Then gnats swarm the land, biting men and animals alike. The magicians try to replicate the sign, but they cannot. This is the finger of God, they admit. Yet Pharaoh will not listen. Flies swarm the land, but not the region of Goshen where the Hebrews dwell. Livestock die, boils break out, hail rains down, locusts devour, and darkness covers Egypt. Each plague is a voice, a divine declaration that the gods of Egypt are powerless, and only the Lord reigns. And through it all, Pharaoh's voice resists. Again and again, Moses delivers the command, "Let my people go." Again and again, Pharaoh refuses. At times he bends, only to harden once more. His voice is the voice of stubbornness, of pride, of a heart unwilling to yield. But with each plague, God's voice grows louder, undeniable. The land trembles under his words. The Nile, the fields, the sky, all become instruments of his message. This is not just a battle of miracles, it is a battle of voices. Pharaoh declares ownership over Israel. God declares, "They are my people." Pharaoh claims divinity. God reveals his power. The night is heavy with silence, but also with dread. In Egyptian houses, lamps flicker as fear grips hearts. Midnight comes, and a cry shatters the stillness, a cry that rises from every street, every corner of the land. The firstborn of Egypt has fallen. From the palace of Pharaoh to the lowliest servant's home, death spares no household untouched by the blood. In Goshen, among the Hebrews, the mark of blood stands as their shield. They wait in trembling, yet they are spared. The promise holds true. Pharaoh's pride crumbles beneath grief. His voice, once filled with defiance, now trembles with desperation. He calls for Moses and Aaron in the night. "Up, leave my people, you and the Israelites. Go, worship the Lord as you have requested. Take your flocks and herds and go, and also bless me." Egypt, broken and weary, urges the Hebrews to leave quickly. Gold, silver, and clothing are pressed into their hands as they depart. A nation of slaves rises and walks out, not in secret, not in hiding, but in triumph. By the light of dawn, hundreds of thousands move forward. Men, women, children, herds of animals, all stepping out of Egypt's shadow for the first time in generations. Their voices rise in awe and disbelief. They are free. Pillars of cloud and fire go before them, signs of the God who leads them. The desert opens wide, and their path leads not north into familiar routes, but toward the wilderness, where no army would dare to chase. But Pharaoh's heart, though broken, hardens again. Rage consumes him as the reality sets in. His slaves are gone, his land plundered. He calls for his army, chariots gleaming in the sun, horses snorting with fury, soldiers armed with spears and swords. 600 of his best chariots, along with all the might of Egypt, thunder into pursuit. The Israelites camp by the waters of the Red Sea. Before them, the sea stretches wide, its waves restless under the wind. Behind them, the dust of Pharaoh's army rises like a storm. Trapped between water and war, panic erupts. They cry out to Moses, "Was it because there were no graves in Egypt that you brought us to the desert to die? What have you done to us by bringing us out of Egypt? It would have been better for us to serve the Egyptians than to die in the desert." Fear spreads like wildfire. Freedom now feels like death. Hope collapses under the sight of chariots drawing near. Moses lifts his voice above the cries. "Do not be afraid. Stand firm and you will see the deliverance the Lord will bring you today. The Egyptians you see today you will never see again. The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still." Night falls. The pillar of cloud shifts, standing between Israel and Egypt, casting darkness on one side and light on the other. The armies of Pharaoh cannot advance. Moses stands at the water's edge, staff in hand, the roar of waves before him. Then God commands, "Raise your staff and stretch out your hand over the sea to divide the water so that the Israelites can go through on dry ground." He obeys. The wind begins to howl, fierce and unrelenting. All night it blows, pushing back the waters. Slowly, impossibly, the sea divides. Walls of water rise on the left and on the right, and between them a path of dry ground appears. The way of escape is opened. The people stare in silence, fear and wonder battling in their hearts. Before them lies the impossible, a road through the sea. Behind them waits certain death. The first foot steps forward. Sand crunches beneath, but no water falls. Another step follows, then another. The crowd surges forward, driven by urgency, carried by faith. But as dawn approaches, chaos strikes. Wheels jam, horses panic, soldiers cry out, "Let's get away from the Israelites. The Lord is fighting for them against Egypt." But escape is too late. Moses stretches out his hand once more. The waters return. The walls collapse with thunderous force, swallowing chariots, soldiers, and Pharaoh's might. Not one survives. On the far shore, Israel watches as the sea closes. Silence falls. The impossible has been done. Their enemies are gone, their chains broken, their freedom secured. Then a voice rises, Moses leading a song. "I will sing to the Lord, for he is highly exalted. Both horse and driver he has hurled into the sea. The Lord is my strength and my defense. He has become my salvation." The song spreads. Tambourines shake in Miriam's hands. Women dance, children laugh. Voices echo across the wilderness. A nation sings to the God who delivered them. The sea has closed behind them. Egypt is gone, its chariots swallowed by the waves. A nation rejoices on the far shore, their songs echoing across the desert winds. Yet as the music fades, the reality of the journey sets in. Before them lies the wilderness of Shur, miles of sun-scorched earth, rocky ridges, and endless horizons. Day after day the people march. The sun blazes overhead, scorching their faces, drying their throats. Children stumble, elders lean heavily on staffs. The euphoria of victory begins to wither beneath the heat of survival. 3 days pass without water. Their lips crack, their tongues grow heavy. The people drink, their thirst quenched, their lesson begun. Survival in the wilderness will not depend on their strength, but on the one who provides. But thirst is not their only trial. Soon hunger gnaws at their bellies. The grain they carried from Egypt runs low. The livestock cannot feed a multitude. The desert offers nothing but dust. Murmurs grow into complaints. "If only we had died by the Lord's hand in Egypt. There we sat around pots of meat and ate all the food we wanted. But you have brought us out into this desert to starve this entire assembly to death." The memory of slavery twists in their minds, painted with longing. Chains are forgotten, but meals remembered. Freedom feels empty when stomachs are hollow. God answers not with anger, but with provision. In the morning, dew covers the ground. When it lifts, Thin flakes lie scattered like frost. The people stare, puzzled. "What is it?" they ask. Moses replies, "It is the bread the Lord has given you to eat." They name it manna, the food of heaven, appearing each dawn with the dew. Every day they gather enough for that day alone. If they try to store it, it spoils with worms. Only on the 6th day are they to gather double, for the 7th is rest. Through this daily rhythm, the wilderness becomes their classroom, teaching them trust one sunrise at a time. Yet again, thirst returns. At Rephidim, the people camp where no water flows. Their complaints grow sharper, their anger fierce. "Why did you bring us up out of Egypt to make us and our children and livestock die of thirst?" Stones lie heavy in their hands. Moses fears for his life. He cries out, "What am I to do with these people? They are almost ready to stone me." God's answer is as unexpected as it is miraculous. Moses is told to strike the rock at Horeb with his staff. He obeys, and water gushes out in streams, flowing across the dry ground, enough for all to drink. The desert yields to the power of God, and once again the people learn. Their need is met not by the land, but by the Lord of the land. But thirst and hunger are not their only tests. In the wilderness, enemies rise. The Amalekites attack, striking at the weak and weary. For the first time since their freedom, Israel faces war. Moses commands Joshua to choose men and fight. As battle rages below, Moses climbs a hill with the staff of God in his hands. When his arms are raised, Israel prevails. When he lowers them, Amalek gains ground. Weary, his arms falter. But Aaron and Hur stand beside him, holding up his hands until sunset. Together they watch as Joshua overcomes the Amalekites. Victory comes not from might, but from unity and faith. The wilderness continues its lessons. At last, Israel camps before Mount Sinai. Thunder rolls across the peaks. Lightning flashes. A thick cloud descends. The people encamp before Sinai. The mountain rises above them, jagged and vast, its peaks shrouded in clouds that gather though the skies are clear. Whispers ripple through the camp. This is the place where Moses first saw the burning bush, the place where God had promised he would return. 3 months have passed since they walked out of Egypt. 3 months since they saw the sea split and close again. Now, at the foot of Sinai, the purpose of their freedom is revealed. God calls Moses up the mountain. From the heights, the voice of the Eternal speaks. "You yourselves have seen what I did to Egypt and how I carried you on eagle's wings and brought you to myself. Now if you obey me fully and keep my covenant, then out of all nations you will be my treasured possession. Although the whole earth is mine, you will be for me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation." Moses descends, carrying the message to the people. Their response thunders across the camp. "We will do everything the Lord has said." On the 3rd day, as dawn breaks, Sinai shakes. Thunder rolls across the sky. Lightning strikes the peaks. A thick cloud descends, cloaking the mountain in shadow and fire. A trumpet blast pierces the air, louder and louder, until the ground trembles beneath their feet. The people gather at the base, trembling in awe and fear. Smoke billows upward as if the mountain itself is aflame. The sound of the trumpet grows unbearable, and then silence. A voice, deep and unshakable, speaks, "I am the Lord your God, who brought you out of Egypt, out of the land of slavery. You shall have no other gods before me." One by one, the commandments are spoken, the foundation of covenant, the laws of life. Do not make idols. Do not misuse his name. Remember the Sabbath. Honor father and mother. Do not murder. Do not commit adultery. Do not steal. Do not bear false witness. Do not covet. Each word presses into their hearts like fire into stone. The people, overwhelmed, cry out to Moses, "Speak to us yourself and we will listen. But do not have God speak to us or we will die." Moses ascends again into the thick darkness where God dwells. There he receives laws and instructions, the pattern of worship, the covenant that binds heaven and earth. When he returns, he builds an altar at the mountain's foot. Sacrifices are offered. Blood is sprinkled on the altar and on the people. "This is the blood of the covenant that the Lord has made with you," Moses declares. The people answer as one. We will do everything the Lord has said. We will obey. A nation is born not only out of freedom, but out of covenant. Then God calls Moses higher still. He climbs the mountain, vanishing into the cloud of fire and smoke. For 6 days he waits, the silence heavy. On the 7th, the voice calls him deeper. He steps into the heart of glory. For 40 days and nights, Moses remains on Sinai. There he receives the tablets of stone, written with the very finger of God. There he is shown the design of the tabernacle, the place where heaven will meet earth. The mountain is alive with thunder, yet Moses is sustained. In the presence of the Eternal, he neither eats nor drinks. Time loses meaning. Only the voice, the fire, the weight of glory remain. But below, the people grow restless. Days turn to weeks. Doubt spreads like a shadow. As for this fellow Moses who brought us up out of Egypt, we don't know what has happened to him, they say. In their impatience, they turn to Aaron. Make us gods who will go before us. Gold is gathered, melted, shaped into a calf. Voices rise in worship, shouts and songs, feasting and revelry. The God who split seas is forgotten in the shadow of an idol. On the mountain, God speaks to Moses. Go down, because your people whom you brought up out of Egypt have become corrupt. Anger burns, judgment is declared. Yet Moses pleads, interceding for the people. Turn from your fierce anger, relent, and do not bring disaster on your people. Descending with the tablets in his hands, Moses sees the idol with his own eyes. Rage overwhelms him. The tablets, carved by God himself, crash against the stones, shattered at the foot of the mountain. The idol is ground to powder, scattered into water, and the people drink the bitterness of their sin. Though judgment falls, mercy is not withdrawn. Moses ascends again. He pleads once more, if your presence does not go with us, do not send us up from here. How will anyone know that you are pleased with me and with your people unless you go with us? God answers, my presence will go with you, and I will give you rest. On Sinai's heights, Moses asks, boldly, now show me your glory. The voice replies, I will cause all my goodness to pass in front of you. But you cannot see my face, for no one may see me and live. God places Moses in a cleft of the rock, covering him with his hand as his glory passes by. Moses sees only the back of the Eternal, yet even this is enough to change him forever. When Moses descends again with the new tablets, his face shines. Rays of light blaze from his skin, so bright that the people cannot look at him directly. They draw back in fear. Moses covers his face with a veil when he speaks to them. But in the presence of God, the veil is removed. The man who once hid his face at the burning bush now carries the reflection of divine fire. The weight of glory rests upon him. The years in the wilderness were not easy. The people, though free from Egypt, carried Egypt in their hearts. Time and again they grumbled, doubted, and turned against Moses. At Kadesh, they cried for water. At Paran, they trembled at the giants of Canaan, refusing to enter the land when first commanded. At Peor, they fell into idolatry again, and each time it was Moses who bore the weight of their rebellion. He interceded when God's anger burned. He fell face down before the Lord, pleading for mercy. He reminded the Eternal of his promises to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Often his prayers stood between the people and destruction. His leadership was not one of conquest, but of intercession. And yet, though his patience was long, his burden was heavy. It was at Meribah where the strain broke through. Once again, the people quarreled over water. Once again, they accused Moses of leading them to death. The familiar chorus rose, if only we had died when our brothers fell before the Lord. Why did you bring the Lord's community into this wilderness, that we and our livestock should die here? God's command was clear. Speak to that rock before their eyes, and it will pour out its water. But anger clouded Moses' heart. He stood before the assembly, staff in hand, his voice sharp with frustration. Listen, you rebels, must we bring you water out of this rock? He struck the rock twice. Water gushed forth in abundance, the people drank, their thirst quenched. But the act carried a hidden wound. Moses had not obeyed. He had not honored God's holiness before the people. The voice of the Lord came, heavy and irreversible. Because you did not trust in me enough to honor me as holy in the sight of the Israelites, you will not bring this community into the land I give them. The judgment fell like a shadow over his heart. After all the years, after all the battles, Moses would lead them only to the border. The land of promise would be for others. Time moved on. The wilderness years drew to a close. A new generation rose, born in freedom though raised in hardship. They had not felt the lash of Egypt, but they carried the hope of Canaan. Moses, old and weary, looked upon them with both pride and sorrow. His hair white, his eyes still bright, his voice still strong. He stood before them to deliver his final words. The book of Deuteronomy is the echo of his heart. Sermons, reminders, warnings, blessings. He recounts their history, the miracles, the failures, the covenant. Again and again, he urges, be strong. Be careful to obey. Do not forget the Lord your God. But he knows his time is near. God appoints Joshua, the warrior, as his successor. In the sight of all Israel, Moses lays his hands on him, passing the mantle of leadership. A nation prepares to step forward. Their deliverer prepares to step aside. At last, God leads Moses up Mount Nebo to the heights of Pisgah, across from Jericho. From there, the land stretches out before him, valleys rich with promise, hills covered with green, rivers glinting in the sunlight. The land sworn to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the inheritance of his people. God speaks softly. This is the land I promised on oath to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob when I said, I will give it to your descendants. I have let you see it with your eyes, but you will not cross over into it. Moses stands silent. He sees it all, the fields of Canaan, the Jordan winding like a ribbon, the horizon fading into distance. He drinks in the sight, though he cannot walk its soil. His heart holds both fulfillment and sorrow. He has brought them here, but cannot go further. There, on the mountain, Moses breathes his last. The servant of God, 120 years old, his eyes undimmed, his strength not gone. And the Lord himself buries him in a valley in Moab. To this day no one knows his grave. The people weep for 30 days, their mourning echoing across the plains. Then Joshua rises, and the journey continues. But Moses' memory does not fade. He is remembered as the prophet who knew the Lord, face to face, the man through whom the law came, the shepherd who led a stubborn flock across desert and mountain, the intercessor who stood between God and his people. His legacy is not in entering the land, but in preparing others to do so. His greatness is not in seizing victory for himself, but in pointing to promises beyond his reach. Generations will recall his name. Prophets will speak of him. Centuries later, on another mountain, he will stand beside Elijah, speaking with one greater than them both. His journey, though incomplete in the eyes of men, is fulfilled in the eyes of God. Moses began his journey as a child marked for death, hidden in a basket, rescued by mercy. He grew as a prince, yet carried the heart of a slave. When God called him, he felt unqualified, slow of speech, inadequate. And yet, it was precisely in that weakness that God's strength was revealed. How often do we feel the same? Unworthy, unprepared, too flawed to make a difference. But the story of Moses reminds us, it is not the strength of the vessel, but the presence of the one who fills it. The God who called Moses from the bush calls us too, not because we are ready, but because he is able. 40 years in Egypt, 40 years in Midian, 80 years before Moses truly began his life's mission. To human eyes, that looks like wasted time. To divine eyes, it was preparation. The wilderness shaped him. Obscurity humbled him. Waiting ripened him. We live in a world that despises waiting, that demands results now. But the story of Moses whispers, trust the process. What feels like delay may be design. What feels like exile may be training. God's timeline is not ours, but it is always perfect. When Israel walked through the sea, they were free. But freedom did not erase fear. At every obstacle, no water, no food, no direction, their first instinct was to turn back. They longed for Egypt's chains because Egypt's chains came with familiarity. Isn't it true for us? We leave behind old patterns, destructive habits, toxic relationships. Yet when the wilderness stretches before us, when faith feels risky, we long for the comfort of what once enslaved us. God cares not just that the water flows, but that His name is honored. Holiness is weighty, and even the greatest leaders are not exempt from accountability. Moses never set foot in Canaan. To some, that would seem like failure. Yet his life was not diminished. His legacy lay not in entering, but in leading others to the threshold. He passed the mantle to Joshua, prepared a generation for faith, and pointed beyond himself. Our culture measures success by arrival, by what we achieve, what we gain, what we hold. But Moses' life teaches that true greatness is found in what we leave behind, in the people we shape, the values we plant, the vision we hand forward. Legacy is greater than arrival. At Sinai, Moses spoke words that echo through eternity. If your presence does not go with us, do not send us up from here. He understood what truly mattered. Not the land, not the milk and honey, not even freedom itself. The presence of God was the true inheritance. What about us? Do we chase the blessings of God more than God Himself? Do we desire the gift more than the giver? Moses' plea calls us back to the center. Without His presence, all else is empty. With His presence, even the wilderness becomes holy ground. On Mount Nebo, Moses looked out and saw the land he would never enter. Yet that glimpse was enough, for his story did not end there. Centuries later, on another mountain, the Mount of Transfiguration, Moses stood beside Elijah, speaking with Christ Himself. In weakness, and ended in glory. It is the story of a nation carried not by strength, but by promise. It is the story of God's faithfulness etched into the journey of flawed humanity. And it is a story that still speaks today. When you feel unqualified, remember Moses. When you feel forgotten and waiting, remember Moses. When you fear the wilderness, remember Moses. That was enough for Moses, and it is enough for us. The truth is this: Moses' story is not just his, it is ours. The same God who was with him is with you. The same presence that led him through deserts will lead you. The same voice that called his name calls yours. So take the step. Answer the call. Let your story be written in the hands of the God who never fails. For in the end, the greatest promise is not a land, not a dream, not even a destiny. The greatest promise is God Himself, and He is enough. If this journey spoke to your heart, don't let it end here. Make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications so you won't miss the next story of faith and courage that can transform your life. And before you go, leave a comment below. What part of Moses' story challenged you the most? I'd love to hear your reflections. Until next time, remember, every wilderness can become holy ground if you walk it with God.